It might help if I turn the microphone on. Well, that's a thing. Haha. We were so close. So close.
That's what she said.
Hello, everybody.
Yep. Just moving right along.
Welcome back to Dallas Geek. As always, I'm Brad. That's Mike. We are Dallas Geek, and we are your source for all of the latest nerdy news and geek culture. We had a little technical flub. I think just a minor technical flub is pretty solid, considering that we are working off of a setup that has been totally rebuilt from the ground up, and still getting it back to prime time. I think that's pretty solid.
I don't know if forgetting to turn the mic on is a minor flub.
Minor.
There we go.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us. And Mike, what are we talking about today?
Video game movies and TV shows and whatnot, and why they suck. Question mark?
I mean, this isn't a BuzzFeed article here.
See what I just did there?
Yeah. This isn't a BuzzFeed article, so I
true.
think we can be a bit more straightforward than that.
Why they're dog shit? Question mark?
I mean, it's more straightforward, but not quite the direction I was thinking.
Ah.
I was thinking more along the lines of, hey, we have a new video game adaptation out right now on HBO Max, The Last of Us. And with that, along with a lot of the latest commentary around the upcoming Season 3 of The Witcher and the very unfortunate prequel series, Witcher Blood Origin.
Don't forget the Mario movie.
Oh, we're getting to that.
No, okay.
We are getting to that.
No,
there's been a lot of conversation lately about the issue of game adaptations into movies and shows,
right,
and whether or not the video game curse still exists. I mean, for anybody that has been around within the gaming side of things for even a little bit, we've all heard of the Mario movie, and
well, no, I was talking about the new Mario movie that's coming out.
Oh man, I forgot that's a thing.
Yeah.
I kind of blocked it out.
Really? I'm actually really excited for it. It's the guys that did Despicable Me doing Mario.
I wasn't a fan of Despicable Me.
Really?
I just can't do
Okay.
it. I can't do it. The minions bother me. Plus, I mean,
is that like a repressed nightmare
no,
kind of thing? Or?
That side of DreamWorks animation just never quite does it for me.
That's fair.
It feels like it's a bit too try hard.
I can see that. That's fair.
But anyway, so yeah, no, I'm sure most of you out there have heard, for one reason or another, of the Super Mario Bros. Movie from. What year was it again? It was 90, wasn't it? It was early 90s?
I've tried to repress it.
93.
Yeah.
93. And of course,
I've tried to
that
repress it.
had some very interesting connotations and a very unfortunate impact on the gaming industry as a whole.
God, just look at that list of shit.
So the problem was...
Oh God, I forgot about Alone in the Dark.
The problem
that was Tara Reid and Christian Slater, wasn't it?
I tried not to think about it.
God.
So the problem was that you had a movie that came out in 93 that was named after the most popular video game at the time, still one of the most popular video games of all time.
Right.
And they came in with characters named after the characters in the games and included just enough nods to what those characters were supposed to look like, you know, color schemes for part of their outfits sometimes. And then just threw out all other source material after that and decided to make something entirely shit. Entirely shit. I mean, the fact that Bob Hoskins and
John Leguizamo.
Yeah, there it is. I don't know why I couldn't remember his name, because I love John Leguizamo.
I love Bob Hoskins.
But the fact that the two of them could not get through filming that movie without getting drunk daily just to be able to get by.
Yeah.
That alone should tell you everything you need to know about how awful it was.
It also shows you why Nintendo is so protective of their intellectual properties now.
I do not blame them. But the big problem was that because of that, it created a narrative of video game movie adaptations being bad. And then from there, we had the very unfortunate Double Dragon and Street Fighter. I'm not going to say the original Mortal Kombat was bad, because I love that campy shit. Like that, I mean, it was shit, but it was amazing and campy.
Going back and looking at
ridiculous.
those, Double Dragon, didn't that have Alyssa Milano in it?
I think so.
And then Street Fighter had Van Damme.
Let's not talk about Mortal Kombat Annihilation, because that just doesn't deserve to
Wasn't
be
Kylie
discussed.
Minogue also in the Street Fighter movie?
Well, I'll look that up.
Okay.
But there was
there were actually
some good stuff.
Well, but here's the thing though, is like there were actually names attached to these movies.
Yeah, there was some good here and there, but overall it was a lot more bad than good.
Wing Commander had Freddie Prinze Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Matthew Lillard, if I remember right.
And let's not forget the original Wing Commander game had the live video cutscenes with who was it? Who was it? Who was it? Who was it? You should be ashamed of yourself.
I should be.
Mark freaking Hamill.
That's right.
Still amazing that was a thing.
But yeah, like Tomb Raider,
Yeah.
Angelina Jolie, Resident Evil, Mia Jovovich, Tomb Raider, House of the Dead.
So there was a lot that happened around video game movies and series that honestly created a narrative for a while that was pretty justified, that, you know, those adaptations just could not be good.
Right.
Like if it was based on a video game, guaranteed it's going to be terrible.
Right. Yeah.
But over about the past 10 years, that narrative has continued on, but the reality of that narrative has kind of shifted.
I would say the last 5 years.
And honestly, there's a lot more successes within the world of adaptations than there are failures.
Right.
Whether you are looking at it as far as box office success or audience review success. I have to point out specifically audience review success, because critic review is still kind of iffy there, but that's just because, you know, there's not going to be a video game adaptation shooting for an Oscar.
I mean, The Last of Us might be getting Emmys.
And that would be fantastic.
And Golden Globes, because, I mean, we haven't watched it yet, but everything that I'm reading is that it is absolutely fantastic.
And it's got Pedro, so.
Yeah.
You're not a Pedro Pascal fan?
I still don't like that they recasted those, because Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson literally did the motion and face capture for those characters, so you could literally just have them play those characters.
Except for the fact that, well, Troy Baker might be able to pull off physically the build and age of the character that he would need to. Ashley Johnson is at least a couple years older than her character.
That's very
so
fair,
that one was always going to be weird if they didn't recast, because it would change the dynamic.
True.
But I mean, as much as I would love to see Ashley Johnson do just about anything, because she's amazing.
Right.
But yeah, I think with The Last of Us coming out and getting pretty decent reviews overall, it really does bring up the need to kind of discuss again whether or not the ongoing commentary of the video game curse is a legitimate thing anymore, and if there is still validity there, what could be done to fix it, as far as either better adaptations or better perception going into what the expectations should be.
I think why The Last of Us has a really good chance to be successful, and it is successful, is they have Neil Druckmann, the original director, right? Storyteller, working on the adaptation. But the thing that I think that it really has going for it is it understands that it's really hard to in my opinion, of course, it's really hard for video games to translate to like movies, TV, that kind of stuff. Because video games in and of themselves are a form of long-form storytelling.
Yes.
It's 30,
just like
40,
books.
50 hours.
Just like books.
Right.
And there's a reason why...
Turn that into a 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah, there's a reason why there are very, very few book adaptations into movies that you would consider to be successful as far as the original book fans accepting what the movie became.
Well, even the Harry Potters. Think about like
and those
all of the
were
things
wildly
that are
successful,
right.
But
there's a lot that's left out of the movies.
Yeah.
Think of the Lord of the Rings, and those were 3-hour movies each.
Well, but unless you got the director's cut.
But he turned a short story in The Hobbit into three-hour movies.
Well, I mean, it depends. If you got the extended editions, they weren't 3-hour movies anymore.
Right, but he also went way off the reservation with stuff that he put in there that wasn't in the books. And
no, there was still quite a bit in the books. There was a bit more that was brought in from other Tolkien sources, yeah. But for the most part, he was still pretty loyal to the book. But no, it was, I believe the extended edition put out to 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
And there's a rumor that's recently started going around that there's a possibility that a new director's cut extended edition could be a thing, because Peter's recently come out to say that there was still stuff left on the cutting room floor that he would love to put in and would make each one about a 9-hour movie. Which, I mean, if you want to be book accurate,
right?
Technically, that would be.
But that's the same issue that you come across with video games. Yeah. Like The Last of Us is, and if you power through it, you can probably play it in 20 to 30 hours of just straight gameplay. But you're turning that into a series, or you're turning that into a movie. That's a lot of context, and that's a lot of world building and universe building that's going to be left out.
And that's not even talking about if you're trying to adapt an RPG
right.
Into a movie, and how many hundreds of hours you can put into that with side quests and mini games that could honestly make or break the games.
And I think too, the other thing that also gets lost in the translation is the investment that you have in a video game because you're playing it.
Yes.
You're actively doing these things to push these characters through the narrative, whether it be a third person like The Last of Us where you're controlling Joel and Ellie, spoilers, or if you're playing something like a BioShock where it's a first person and it's trying to be immersive in that you are said character, right? Like, you are still actively going through the motions of these things, so you are invested to a certain degree, more so than you would be just sitting down watching a movie, a TV show, that kind of thing. You are actively controlling and pushing forward the narrative.
Yeah, without question.
So I think that's something too that also gets lost in the translation, going from that medium of storytelling to this one, is how do you take that sense of, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Is how do you take
personalization?
Yeah, thank you. Like, how do you take that sense of personalization and investment of actually controlling the game and having these events like unfold onto you through this character versus just watching it?
Well, it's a very similar concept to trying to explain the difference between watching something sports related versus playing it. I mean, it doesn't really matter how hardcore of a, let's say, football fan you are. If you actually play football, the experience of watching it's never going to be the same.
That's right.
Especially for baseball.
You have friends all the time. I love playing baseball, but it's so boring to watch. Or soccer's so boring to watch, but I love playing. Right,
yeah,
exactly.
It's a very different thing. Right. And I think that's always going to be an issue.
Yeah.
And unless we can get to a point where virtual reality is able to extend to enough of a daily use kind of retail thing available to everybody, so that you can have that, like, put yourself into the thing you're watching, So you really get that first-person view of the show or movie or whatever that you're watching. So now you're experiencing that entertainment. Until we get to that point, I don't think there is ever going to be another way to make a movie or show have the same kind of feel as a game from that personal connection or first-person view. I don't think it's possible, because even movies that have been created with, from the first-person view, that was meant to give that kind of thing, still didn't really come across the same.
Right.
I mean, it was a cool concept, but it was not the kind of immersive experience that you would get playing.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess the question is, if you're never going to be able to recreate that experience watching something, is it worth adapting, or is there a way to adapt that can get around that issue and make the whole thing feel unique and fresh, even for the people that have played the game over and over and over?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I mean, I guess it can come across as sounding a little too like a gatekeeper, but I mean, like,
in video games, gatekeeping? No,
right?
Never.
That community. Look, so like I had never owned a PlayStation console. I was always a Nintendo kid growing up, and then I had an Xbox 360. I bought a PlayStation 3 to play The Last of Us. It's the first game I played on my PlayStation 3.
Good for you for finally giving in.
Yeah, right. Peer pressure.
Better controller.
You got that censor button ready? Did that survive the?
It's coming back later.
Okay. Well, then in the meantime, you can chuck yourself out that window if you think the PlayStation controller is better than the Xbox controller. Jesus Christ. Anyway.
100% better.
No, it is not. It is dog shit terrible compared to the Xbox controller.
It fits in your hand so much better. It's more natural feeling.
It's more natural feeling?
Yes.
I swear to God, I will break your thumbs if you think that that's a natural feeling. Anyway.
Wow.
How do you play a shooter on a controller that doesn't have a trigger?
I play it on the PC.
God, you're one of those mouse and keyboard bastards.
It's more accurate, and it's better.
Oh, so yeah, do something that does the work for you. There you go.
Because
yeah, God forbid
auto aim in console games doesn't do the work for you.
No, not to the extent that PC does, where you can literally just let me line it up here with my mouse and just pull the trigger.
That's not the same thing. That's literally doing it yourself down to the millimeter.
Right. Well, and auto aim isn't actually as accurate as, because auto aim has to be put in there to actually curb the advantage that PC players have, and PC players still have an advantage even with auto aim.
Because PC is more accurate. That's right.
Right. So you have something that makes it easier for you. Yes.
No, it makes it better.
Anyway. But no, look, like, so
Can you tell I play a sniper?
Yes. Yeah, but I do it on a controller, so I do it for real. No, look, so like I said, like, Last of Us is the first game that I ever played on a PlayStation.
Yeah.
Played it for, all of the reviews and everything like that. I was like, I've got to play it. Picked it up, played it, cried like a bitch multiple times.
As well you should.
Yes. It's if you haven't played it, if you don't know the story and you're watching the show, oh, you poor bastards. You have no idea what's coming. If you thought the first episode was sad, just wait. Anyway, because I know what happens. But and then I branched out, grabbed other Naughty Dog games like the Uncharted series, branched out even further, did a couple of more, but like it being a soul, just like if I would have never played another game on that PlayStation, it would have been worth it. Just for that experience.
Sure.
So to say, should we adapt into different mediums of storytelling so that other people can experience it? I guess my argument would be is why can't they go pick up a PlayStation and play it?
Well, you have to take into consideration that not everybody.
It's on PC now too.
Well, not everybody that wants to be able to experience a story is necessarily a gamer by preference.
Right.
And even if they were very much willing to try to learn for the sake of a specific game because it just looks that great, not every genre of game is going to be able to fit everybody. Like, there's a reason why you have people that are so hardcore dedicated to certain genres of games, and will openly bash all others, because, I mean, if they were being honest, for the most part, they just can't play those games well because it just doesn't fit them, which is fine. But it does come back to the issue of that's always going to be a barrier to people trying to play certain games. Now,
but like,
could you get around that and try to more mainstream something like Twitch, where more people would be able to have access to watch Let's Plays or watch, just games overall, so that they could experience what the original game feel was supposed to be like. I mean, maybe. But even that's going to have a little bit of a barrier to the full experience because they're not the one playing. I think the bigger issue that really needs to be brought up more with adaptations is that as much as you want to try to be accurate with the representation of the original material, that doesn't necessarily mean that the more accurate to the source material you are, the better it's going to be. Because there's a reason why certain aspects of the story are the way they are in a game to fit the mechanics of the game. And
that's a good point.
that if you take the game mechanics out, the aspects of the story or the gameplay that were tailored for that specifically no longer make sense. And so you have to be able to, I think there needs to be a certain willingness to see changes within a game adaptation, at the very least, to be able to make it more palatable for the medium. At most, to be able to take a more unique spin on the story to make it something more than just a live action rehashing of the game that everybody's already played. Like,
that's a fair point.
Like, for example, Sonic the Hedgehog. The first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, after the studio got beat up over their initial trailers, what we got from it was a solid Sonic movie. Sonic 2 comes out, and that blew people's expectations away and made most of the game fans happy with what they were able to do with it. Was it loyal to the source material? It depends on what you mean by the source material, because with Sonic, you already had adaptations. It was a game, then it was a comic, then it was multiple cartoons, and now even multiple comics. And if you're just saying that it's a video game adaptation, then it's really a poor adaptation. But if you look at even the first adaptations for the cartoons, especially the Saturday morning cartoon, that was a fantastic show, but they had to take enough liberties from the game and take more inspiration from the comics in order to make that the amazing storytelling and art that it was. And everybody considered that to be a very good and decently loyal adaptation of the idea behind the game. Now, you come to the new movies, and they are more loyal to the idea that you got, the soul of the cartoons, than they were the games, but they had enough elements of the games that it was still an accurate enough depiction of both,
Right.
that it's still an adaptation for both.
Excuse me.
If
Sorry.
you do
Jeez,
that
I'm
with
yawning
other
a lot
adaptations and you go in and make the live action or even animated experience unique to the medium while still being true to at least the spirit of the story, I think that is, as long as it's well done, it's a worthwhile adaptation. And if you're going to keep bashing on it because, well, it's just not loyal to the source material enough, maybe it's just not for you, but that doesn't make it a bad adaptation.
I get what you're saying.
Like, would you say Detective Pikachu was a loyal and accurate adaptation of Pokemon?
So here's the thing. So Detective Pikachu was an actual game that came out that existed kind of in the Pokemon universe, right?
Was it an accurate?
So I didn't play the game. I didn't play Detective Pikachu. Now Detective Pikachu was a fun movie. You saw it. A lot of fun, right?
Was it even accurate to the world of Pokemon outside of that game?
I think if you were trying to take a look at a realistic version of what a world with pocket monsters could be, I think Detective Pikachu was a really good adaptation.
But was it an accurate to source material and the source universe depiction of Pokemon?
I guess so. Are you asking me, should it have had a 10-year-old that was left out to his own devices by negligent parents that doesn't know his dad, allowed to travel across the country and basically be a slave trader, if we're being honest?
I mean, that would have been more loyal to the source material.
Okay, so next time we'll have Blood Diamond Pokemon. Got it. Or Color Purple Pokemon. You're the one that said it, not me.
I mean, I wasn't gonna phrase it that way, but like,
no, but I get what you're saying. But like,
yeah.
so like, I'll give you the
was it a
example.
good movie? Was it a good movie?
Detective Pikachu was a lot of fun. I would say it was a good movie. But like, I will give you Uncharted, because me and Kyla recently saw Uncharted, and I love the Uncharted series. I love the characters.
No Nathan Fillion.
No, and I get what they were trying to do, is they were trying to get younger actors to play these characters so that if it did take off, they could keep going for a little while longer. Tom Holland is not Nathan Drake. Mark Wahlberg is not Sully. Like, even the story, like the story is an amalgamation basically of like aspects from all 4 games kind of rolled into one movie. Was that a good adaptation? No. Was it a fun movie? Yes. I actually had a lot of fun watching that movie.
So if you had fun with it...
But would I sit there and say, why is this movie called Uncharted? Yes. I would legitimately say, why did we call this movie Uncharted?
So it worked as a movie, but not as an adaptation because it missed the soul of the source material.
I think it missed the soul of the characters.
There you go. Okay.
I think it tried a little too hard to be... And the thing too is that the games have like big grandiose set pieces and everything like that. So it's really hard to recreate those without using a shit ton of CGI. I would have liked it if they did it like old school Indiana Jones, where they tried to use as many practical effects as possible.
And that sounds like it would be a great idea.
Because I always told people whenever they were like, oh, I've heard good things about the Uncharted series, it's the closest you will ever get to playing an Indiana Jones movie. And they're like, oh, that sounds dope.
Which is funny, since there were actually Indiana Jones games.
Right. And I would still say that that's a better representation of those Indiana Jones games, because those games weren't good. Now, I'm actually really excited to see what the next I can't remember who's doing it, but there's been an Indiana Jones game announced.
Has there?
Yeah. I'm actually
I guess I
really
missed
excited.
that announcement. But that would be really cool.
I can show you the trailer. I mean, it was just an announcement trailer.
But like...
Major.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you can, if you want to go and speak to an adaptation needing to capture the soul of the character's soul of the source material, you can go to, Warcraft or Rampage. As far as, did they put in enough aesthetics of the games to be able to say that this is clearly an adaptation.
Right.
Yeah, sure. But did they completely miss the point for the characters or the soul of the game?
Right.
Absolutely, they missed the point.
So then
it's the exact same issue why
it's hard to do comic books
Uwe
and
Boll is such a detested director because every one of his movies included so many of the aesthetics of the games that it was very clearly trying to be this game. But without question, not even remotely in the same not even in the same zip code as the soul of the game or the soul of the characters or even just the story. It was he took the aesthetics of the games, stripped them out of everything that made them what they were, and put them into the cheapest production movie he could.
Right.
And I mean, it did the job that the studios wanted. It helped them retain the rights to those or game movies, but it didn't actually make any good movies.
Look, like I would even argue more.
That's kind of the main issue here.
Like the most recent Mortal Kombat, right? Like it went R-rated. They went way over the top with the fatalities, like you would in the games. Can I drop one F-bomb? You give me one. If not, don't worry about it.
Wait. Go.
It's literally they get invited to the Mortal Kombat tournament, and then the entire movie takes place before you even get to the tournament. Yeah.
I just realized the censor button's on here now, so there's no reprogramming necessary.
Oh yeah. Look at that.
Oops.
I still got my one.
Well, you did.
It's like a PG-13 movie.
So
now,
yeah, I would.
But
even...
it still captured the aesthetics. They actually, like, the characters were actually pretty decent in terms of like the lore of Mortal Kombat and everything like that. But you don't even get to the Mortal Kombat tournament.
Yeah, which is why when you really look at it, the '95 Mortal Kombat movie, while as cheesy as it was, 100% captured the soul of the game and the intent of the story significantly better than the latest one did, because it just, the original game before all of the additional lore came out was meant to be cheesy action fun.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the original one was. Yeah. It was
Speaking
amazing.
of Mortal Kombat, it sounds like there's a Mortal Kombat going on in the other room.
Kids.
Yeah.
But like it was meant to be fun, and that's exactly what you got with the original. And I think a lot of people, when they talk about the video game curse and they talk about how terrible Super Mario Bros. Was, I think too many people lump in the original Mortal Kombat with that because it was cheesy, and they think that cheesy means it was bad because the original games weren't actually, well, face value, they weren't cheesy. I mean, if you really try to analyze the first couple Mortal Kombat games, they were cheesy as hell.
Toasty!
But they were still great.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of what people really miss is, did it capture enough of the spirit of the game, the intent of the characters, the intent of the whole thing to be able to be justified as an adaptation?
Yeah.
Like, I'd even say that the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raiders were justified as adaptations because they understood enough of the spirit of the first couple Tomb Raider games that if you take all of the other Tomb Raider games out of it and you don't look at anything past Tomb Raider 2, what you got from the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raiders was exactly what you got from the first two games. And it was different stories.
Boobies and curves?
Amongst other things.
Okay.
But, I mean, it wasn't the same stories, but the ideas, the way that the story was laid out, even the the blocking for the frame and how it presented certain scenes felt very much loyal to the first two games.
Yeah.
And I think that made them incredibly justified as adaptations, even if you have enough people out there that say they weren't good movies. I think they were fun. If you don't take them seriously, they were fun movies that understood the ideas of the games.
Right.
I think that should be enough to justify an adaptation, even if you have to deviate from the source material for the story.
Right.
I think that at least gives a justification.
I think that's a fair argument to make.
It's going to piss off fans.
Yeah.
But I think it makes it, the adaptation idea, a worthwhile thing to continue.
And I think that's really hard to, like, and you see it a lot too with like people that read books, comics, that kind of stuff, is like, it's The Walking Dead, I think, is probably like one of the most clear-cut examples that I can modernly think of, because the the Lord of the Rings movies are 20 years old now. Yeah.
Best not to think too hard about that one.
Kidding. Like, there are huge deviations in the Walking Dead show versus what happens in terms of like character deaths, which characters live, which characters see it to the end, like all of that.
But every one of those changes were approved by the original
Not
creator.
all of them, because Kirkman had left after a certain point and had lost creative control.
I'm pretty sure, though, that a lot of the things that happened even after he left had still been more or less set up by him before he went, and I don't think I've heard him openly say that he disagreed.
I don't think he had a good. I can go back and look, but I don't remember him having a good exit from the Walking Dead TV series. Same thing with Frank Darabont, which, isn't it funny that the first season was the best season, and that's the one that Darabont was doing? Because Darabont, not only did he keep it religiously close to the source material, but he was like, he had Kirkman on set every day while they were filming. He was running ideas past him. Like, he read all of it. Like, he took it and he wanted to make it a one-for-one. We are going to take this as if it came off the page and put it into real life.
I mean, even looking at The Boys, I mean, that one absolutely still has the original creator involved.
Right.
And
he's
does it deviate from the
right.
source material? Yeah, a lot.
Right.
Quite a lot. But every bit of it was for the sake of the storytelling.
Right.
And it makes sense within the context of the story they're telling for the show.
Yeah.
And I think that's another, and this is really the last thing that I have to say on the subject. I think that's part of the issue with most adaptations, is that so many adaptations for video games up until recently had been movies. And so you're taking these long form stories and trying to condense them down to, hour and a half to 2.5 hour equivalents.
Right.
But when you are able to make a show as an adaptation, I think that gives a lot more leeway for capturing the spirit of the story and characters better, even if you're deviating from the source material, because as long as you're trying to stay within that idea,
right.
You're able, with the longer form story, you're able to come closer to the same overall experience with that story that you had with the long form game. It'll be unique, but it will still be close enough in spirit that you can say that it's a more accurate depiction.
Right.
And I think that's part of what the problem has been, that and not enough of them have been shows to allow for the long form storytelling to breathe.
And I think the other problem that I have too is just because, like, when these movies come out, if they don't translate well, right? Everybody's automatically like, well, the source material wasn't that good, that's why it failed. Like, that's not totally true. Like, that's very unfair.
Silent Hill didn't do that great in theaters, but it was incredibly loyal to the source material.
Absolutely. Silent Hill is a fantastic series. It really is. Like, if you go back and you look at, like, dude, let's take the first Resident Evil. Like, they completely and totally deviated from pretty much everything about Resident Evil, if we're just going to be 100% honest.
I mean, they kept the aesthetic and the ambiance.
Not really. They went into a modern underground facility and were being terrorized by an AI.
Number 2 was closer.
Number 2, yes. Which is why I still think 2 is the best one of the entire series.
I don't disagree.
Right. But that's one that actually took more of the ambiance and more of the environment and more of the feel of the series and put it onto the screen, where it's this mad dash to get out of the city before shit hits the fan.
And then after that, they turned Alice into Neo, and well, that was that.
How'd that work out for you?
But I mean, look at Silent Hill. Silent Hill, as incredibly accurate to source material as it was, came in only making 97 mil in 2006.
Yeah.
And
with modern inflation, that wouldn't even buy. Oh wait, never mind.
And then it was getting 32% on Rotten Tomatoes for critic score, 31 out of 100 for Metacritic. I mean, it got trashed, but it was accurate in source material. Yeah. And I mean, you have a decent sized fan base for that movie still, because fans of the game still love it.
Absolutely. And like I said, I don't think it's necessarily fair, like, for a video game that doesn't translate well. Just what were you thinking trying to put it into, like, shoehorning it into a 2-hour movie or into like that's the thing. It's funny because me and Kyla, it's funny because we were laying in bed, and I like a prompt came across my Facebook. It was like, if you had an Avatar-sized budget to adapt one video game to a movie, what would it be? I was like, it's really funny that this came across, but then I started thinking about it. I'm like, realistically, these would need to be like multiple movies just to tell the story of one video game. Because she was even like, she even wanted to do, she's like, I would do Legend of Zelda.
Even if you're doing like the first one.
Well, she specifically said Breath of the Wild. If you wanted to try to do Breath of the Wild, that'd have to be 4 or 5 movies.
Yeah.
If she did, and then I was like, what about Ocarina of Time? And she's like, that's probably one that could more easily translate.
But that's still a miniseries.
Exactly.
Like that's a Netflix miniseries.
Yeah. Like I told, I mean, BioShock is one of my favorite series ever. I don't even need to do number 2. I could just do 1 and Infinite. But even then, like, I would still need multiple movies, or it would probably need to be multiple seasons of like what HBO's doing with The Last of Us to tell the story. Like, I think there's just some that don't translate well to a different medium of storytelling, and I don't think that's an indictment on the quality of story.
No.
I think it's just the way that the story is told. I think it, like, how much would you lose if you didn't initially start as a video game and instead it started as a movie?
I mean, if
BioShock was a movie before it was anything else.
Well, if the story is more heavily based in the game mechanics, like BioShock is,
right?
Then
you would lose so much.
You can't remove the game mechanics. Right. Like that defeats the purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Like, part of what makes The Last of Us so just, like, I guess soul crushing is the way to say it, because it's literally supposed to be about the last of us that are still left. Like, what's last of us? Like, what is left of us while we're still here in this post-apocalyptic world is some of the awful things that you are doing to people in the name of survival, in the name of getting this little girl to the other side of the country to maybe find a cure for this cordyceps virus. And you torture people.
Children of men, anyone?
Huh?
Children of men, anyone?
Yeah, right? Yeah. But I mean, like, that's part of what makes it so engrossing is like the acts that you're doing just in the name of survival, and then realizing the awful things that you're doing in the name of what's supposed to be something that's good.
Yeah.
Like, the moral conundrum that comes from, like, me taking a machete to this dude in a, like, interactive cutscene where I'm having to rapidly press the square button, playing as Ellie because this guy's trying to have his way with her, and she's screaming and she's just hacking away. I'm just like, holy shit.
Yeah, like, let's get deep into the dark side of this. Okay.
Yes, like that is something that happens in the game, and it's having you keep mashing the button, and she's just in tears, just covered in this dude's blood, and I'm like, I can't say I blame you, girl.
I think you're really pitching the game well for people that haven't played
But
and
like,
didn't know
but here's
how
the thing.
graphic it gets.
I don't know how that's going to translate to the series.
I mean, HBO's pretty gory,
Right,
so
but here's
I
the
feel
thing.
like they'll do it well.
They'll put it in there. But are you going to get that same sense of like the game making you continue to do that while it's happening? Like you are actively the person that's doing it.
If the director's good enough, I think he could pull it off.
Right.
But see,
you've got to be good enough to do it. That's why, like you said, the mechanics of actually playing the game and pushing the narrative, I think that's something that gets lost. Like it gets lost with putting it into a different medium, and it's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough. It really is. Because I mean, would it be nice for some of these stories to reach a wider audience and bring more eyes to it? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But are they getting the same experience that, say, like you and I got playing these games? I don't know. But then again, I don't want it to come across as sounding like super gatekeeping. But
it's fair.
Yeah.
No, I think there's a...
Shut your whore mouth, Mondo.
Wow. Jumping into the Facebook comments very aggressively now.
It's Facebook. I mean, what are they going to do, ban us? It's not Twitter.
So... Yeah, no, I think there's a lot to be said about the modern video game adaptation. I think the one thing that we more or less consistently come to the conclusion of is that the curse of the video game adaptation, I think, is pretty well done. I don't think that should be considered the norm anymore, because more often than not, the video game adaptations have done well, either box office or audience reception.
Well, I mean, it helps when you have people that are, making them that actually care and not just doing it for a money grab.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's the people making those movies now are people that grew up playing those games, and so it makes a difference. It's how it goes, honestly.
Yep.
And I think this is a conversation that really is, or the conversation that really needs to continue on within the industry. Is put aside the whole video game adaptations are always crap, and put that BuzzFeed shit away.
Let's suck it, BuzzFeed. Wait, what?
I don't think they're gonna care.
Okay, that's right.
I think the industry needs to be talking more about, if you're going to adapt a game, what's the best way to adapt it, and how loyal should you be to the source material beat for beat versus the spirit of it, in order to make it a good adaptation.
That's a fair
point. I think as long as that becomes the conversation and that is the focus, both from the people making it and the people watching, I think it's the future of adaptations will have a much better experience. I think it's going to be a much better time for fans and new introductions alike.
Yeah, I would agree.
So, but with that, I think we have just about covered everything that we can on this. So,
for the most part, indubitably.
So if you have made it this far into the show, thank you so much. We absolutely appreciate that, and of course the algorithm, the Facebook and YouTube algorithm, absolutely love it that you've made it this far. So please do not forget, if you have not already, if you're watching us over on Facebook, don't forget to like the video and follow us for more of this content. And if you are watching us over on YouTube, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you will find out every time we go live or post a new video for one of our interviews or just any of the weird fun stuff that we get to do. And of course, if you want to check out more of our content but don't have time for the videos, you can always check out the audio from everything that we do over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. Because, reasons.
Word.
But with that, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And until next time, I'm Brad. That's Mike. We're Dallas Geek. And see ya.
My arm's getting tired. Hit the button.
Outro.